I've been meaning to share this story from Indonesia for quite some time, and I have the opportunity now, so I think I can get through it. In July, I would not have been able to do this, but now I can. When I was in Indonesia helping out vulnerable children, of course, the helping out part might be questionable, but anyway, I was there with her. We went for a walk outside of a meditation center, retreat center, just outside of Jakarta one day. And the streets that we were walking on our walk were very narrow, so most of the traffic was motorcycles and some foot traffic. And we had gone out a certain distance and we were on our way back. And all of a sudden, we noticed this tiny, incredibly small kitty. It was just so tiny, and there was all this traffic, and this kitty was making her way right towards vulnerable children and I. It was just like, oh! And so we ran out and, scooped up this little kitty, and then we realized, well, this little kitty could be covered with all kinds of living creatures. So then I went to go and find something to carry her back to the retreat center in. So I went to this little shop, this open shop, and there were these two Muslim girls, and Indonesia is largely a Muslim population. And when they saw me, they screamed, but they seemed to know what I was doing because they saw us pause by the kitty. And so without any communication, no words, they dug around and gave me a black plastic bag to carry the kitty back with. So we scooped up this tiny kitty, just skin and bones, just so small. And we started heading back to the retreat center, and we took turns carrying her and saying mantra. And, so what to do when we got back to the retreat center? So I took her into my room, and we found a box, and we got some old towels, and then the whole thing became, how do we get nutrition into this tiny little body? And that became my biggest concern for the next 3 days. In between sessions and everything, I would go into the kitchen, I would ask if they had anything that we could feed the kitty with. And, cats in Indonesia are a very, very small concern, unlike cats and dogs here. So the response I got quite often was, well, maybe you should find its mother. But there was no finding its mother. So I tried getting water and soaking bread, and that seemed to work. But the main point of telling this story about finding this kitty is that I had the most overwhelming feeling that this could be one of my parents, because my parents died in 2013. Here's this little kitty. It's so helpless. And, well, that could be my mom or my dad. And so this brought on this new whole perspective of me wanting to, save this kitty and keep it going and all of that. And just seeing that, if it wasn't the parents of this life, well, certainly it was the parents of a previous life. And so every time I would come back to my room, there would be this little tiny creature screaming at the top of its lungs, and this little tiny thing had a huge sound to it. And then every time I came into where I was staying, this little kitty managed to climb out of the box. I don't know how. And I was terrified of stepping on this little creature. So my stress level for that retreat was actually really, really very high. And then at night, I got to see how mothers are. I was not a mother in this life, but at night, this little creature would make her way out of the box and eventually find her way to where I was sleeping, and I would wake up to this this very huge cry. And even though I thought, well, she's covered with fleas and other things, I thought, I give up, you can sleep with me, I just hope I don't roll on top of you. And so this was the thing every night. And I was sleep deprived, so I could see how mothers are, being sleep deprived. And I was just so worried all the time. So then I could understand my mother's own worry. I was constantly thinking about how this little creature was going to make it. And it was really, she looked so weak, and she was so weak. So, then I decided that, we had to do something for this kitty, because this retreat center, once everyone would leave, it was just managed by people, the workers living there, and I knew that they probably weren't going to be interested in taking care of this kitty. So I think it was on the second night of the retreat, I made an announcement at the beginning of the retreat that some anonymous donor has offered some US money, and would there be someone interested in taking this kitty back to Jakarta and get it to a vet or something. And I thought there'd be all kinds of hands waving in the audience of 60 people. And when I made this announcement, it was like, quiet. So I thought, well, okay, I guess we'll see what happens. So no one was interested in taking care of this kitty. And I didn't know how this was going to play out, so I started Googling places in Jakarta, because I knew we were going back to Jakarta, and I thought, well, maybe we can get some interest there. So the very last night we were there, a young woman actually came forward and said, you know what, I'll take this kitty back to Jakarta and I'll get her to a vet. And I was just jubilant, because now there was just less and less success in getting fluid into this little body. And really, the little eyes on this little kitty were bulging, the bones were sticking out, and she was looking to me like she was in tremendous physical pain. It was just almost unbearable. So I was so happy. And then on the last morning of the retreat, we got the kitty into the meditation hall where Venerable was teaching, and this little kitty got to hear Dharma teaching. So she was right beside Venerable Children's feet during the whole morning of teachings. So we all left on the Sunday heading back to Jakarta, and I was just so thrilled that this woman was going to take care of her. And then the next day I got on the plane and headed back here. And when I opened up my email, I saw this email with this tremendous news from this woman who had taken her to the vet. And the vet had told her that, there's no problem. She's little, her lungs and heart are just fine. All you need to do is get some nutrition into this little body. So no worries, no IV drops necessary, no shots, no nothing. So again, I was just jubilant. I thought, okay, Mom and Dad, you've heard the Dharma, you're going to have a little life, whatever is left, you're going to be loved to death by this woman, it's going to be good. And then about 10 hours later, I opened up my email again, and you can imagine what I saw. So little Merit didn't make it, and this one was so sad. Oh, great. I thought I had some distance from this. Anyway, the good thing about Merit's little short life, she was 3 weeks old according to the vet. She had heard the Dharma, she heard Dharma mantra whispered, and actually at some points I was actually yelling at her at night. So she had some very good imprints. And I can just see now that when I look at any living thing, there's just this potential to see, yep, that could be my parent. Yep, that was my parent at some point. And just to, bestow this little being with some mantra and just something and try and save them. So I'm very grateful that Merit had this time with Venerable Children and her time with the young woman in Jakarta. And so I think we can think of this when we meet living beings like little creatures. We can take the opportunity to say mantra and really keep in mind, there's some debt that we have to this living being. Somehow in the past they've helped us. So now it's our turn to repay the kindness. And now what we have to do is obviously become enlightened, and then we can truly be of benefit to all beings.